Okay. All right, so I think I should be recording, and now I'm going to share screen. So where's my sharing at? Share. Okay. Just gonna go with this window for now. All right, so everybody can see my window here?
Yes.
Cool. All right, so welcome. I don't think I got everybody that's able to join, but for those of you that are joining, that's great. And I'm recording this. So I'll also put this out for some of the people that couldn't make it to today. Um, so basically, what we're doing here is basically a little project here for an application that is targeted towards real estate investors. So there's a couple of different types of real estate investors, which I'm not going to really go into in this meeting, but we can go into it more depending on what you choose to do. And so what I like to do is basically set it up so that because there's like a lot of different people with different backgrounds here. Some people are like more on the business side of things, and some people might be more towards the technical side of things. And some people might want to do both. They might want to straddle it, right? So if you think of someone that is like doing business analysis, um, yes, they look at things from a business perspective and try to understand like what the functional requirements are, but they're also looking at, well, actually, how do I implement that solution, right? What type of data do I need? What are the needs in terms of like where are my users at? How much data do I need to ship around? Like whatever it is, there's all kinds of requirements that kind of translate into like some sort of technical architecture, technical design or implementation. Um, so, it can span. You can take a solution all the way from a business or a functional requirements all the way down to like the technical implementation, or you can just choose to focus on the business side of things. But I think it's still important to kind of have some understanding of what the technical um, requirements would be, so that it kind of puts you in a position to understand whether that solution is feasible or not, right? You can dream of something, but if technically it's not feasible, you're kind of limited there, right? But then at the same time, I still want to leave it open for people to have some creativity, to be able to not be constrained by what they think is possible right now, but also consider like what in an ideal world you would like to be able to do. Um, and then we can kind of walk it back and figure out what is actually realistic to actually implement, given the current state of technology. Okay. And so what I did here, for those of you that don't know what GitHub is, this is GitHub. So we're in GitHub. Just think of it as like a common area where people can basically share information, and it's like a repository and people can put stuff in there. It's versioned, and you have a clear audit trail of like people making changes and stuff like that. So that's pretty much GitHub. It happens to be one of the more popular ones, but there's a few different type of repositories that do stuff like this. So I think it's a nice thing for me to be able to kind of introduce you guys to using GitHub also, since it is a popular type of thing, that you guys can go ahead and, work in this repository. We'll have, clear views about like, what people are contributing to it. So you can almost like look at it as your portfolio. So you can work on different projects within GitHub. And then when you go, apply for a job, or you just want to show people what you're working on, or you want to invite other people to work with you on it, um, you can go in here and just say, hey, I'm working on this project over in GitHub. And then they can come and take a look at what you have here. And so what I did here, everything within here, basically you can make changes to it, right? There's an audit trail and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into the mechanics of like, you know, pulling stuff out, checking stuff back in, but you are doing essentially that type of stuff in here. Um, but for your purpose, this is just kind of getting you intro to it. We can get more into the nuances of like how GitHub works in a separate session, or you can kind of look, there's a whole bunch of documentation on it. Um, but for the purpose of what you guys are looking at right now, just think of it as a bucket that we're storing our files in. Okay. Um, and so you can see here, I kind of gave like this README, which is basically introduction to the project. Here's a table of contents, and here's like all the different type of topics here. And I kind of almost put it out here just to give people some ideas about different things to consider and to like potentially work on. You can see like if you think about like the different types of functionalities from a business perspective, it's a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of different things you could be doing here. Like it's only constrained by your imagination here. But some of this stuff, like a lot of this stuff actually, I kind of try to frame it within like real types of requirements, right? So for example, I have a real estate portfolio. I have to do certain things in terms of like filing my taxes, right? So these are like actual different types of things as a business investor, a real estate investor, I need to have these type of reporting, okay? And similar to like insurance and loan applications. So if I have properties, I have to think about what the financing needs are for it. I have to obviously get insurance. There's different types of insurance to deal with. If I'm doing renovations or I'm like building new property, I have to deal with town permits, compliance. Um, you know, this is a little bit more that I kind of put out there, which I haven't fleshed out fully, but it kind of gives you like a skeleton. And then up here, there's different types of what we'll call dashboards. And again, so you think of it, I'm running a real estate portfolio, and then I sit down every day. What do I do every day? I'm probably doing these type of dashboards to check on what I have to follow up with. So for example, let's say I have a tenant management dashboard, right? So I might have some tenants, I need to go call on them and check, hey, your lease is about to come up. Do you guys want to renew? Um, maybe I have some tenants that haven't paid up yet. Like, where's the money, right? That type of stuff. Um, all of these different types of roles that, when you're dealing with the real estate, it could be dealing with, I have to pay out the property taxes. I have to deal with, licensing fees or whatever, right? There's all kinds of different activities, and they all kind of should flow into one of these type of dashboards here, which I laid out. Um, and again, I laid out like a lot of detail here just to kind of give you something tangible for you to kind of drill into as a topic. But don't be constrained by what I put here. This is just me putting some stuff out here based on my own experience, working with the real estate side of things. But you guys can feel free to add to it and whatever. So let's say you want to add to this, right? So I can go in here. You see like this little pencil thing here. I can click on that and it comes up and you can see it's something like this, right? So this is format here. You can see it ends with like a .md here. This is like markdown. So in some ways, for some of you guys that have been in my class, this is almost like when we're talking about stuff with HTML, okay? And so you can do all of this stuff here. You can see it doesn't look like the screen that we just looked at, right? So in a very similar way, when you look at HTML, you do this markup language and it looks kind of like this. And then when you actually see it on the browser, it gets rendered. And whenever this thing comes back, come on, come on, come on, taking forever here. Hmm, not sure why this is taking so long here. Yeah, I'm just going to cancel this. Okay. So anyway, you can see this is different than what you just saw with the markdown, right? So this is essentially the same thing as when you guys render your HTML onto a browser, right? So it looks like this, kind of nice and pretty here. Um, so that's also why I put this out here so that you guys can actually look at something and have an example to work off of. So you don't actually need to know the markdown language here. You can just go in there and just kind of tweak whatever is existing already and work with it. Okay. And the nice thing about us keeping versionings, if you happen to kind of screw it up, either one, you don't check it in, or two, you do check it in. But then if we have to, we can look at older versions to kind of fix things up if needed. Okay. But this kind of gives you a feel for this intro that I put here. Okay. So let me go back up to the top here. And in case you didn't see it, what I did was I just kind of up at the top, it kind of shows you like real estate app. And then if you kind of go into each of these files, it'll drill down, but you want to go back up to the top, you can click on that. But you can see here, let's say I look at the contributors. Again, I just made stuff up here. So I stuck this here, and then you guys can go in here and just replace these, right? So for example, I have a role here, let's say for a lead developer architect. You can put your information in here, not Jane Doe, right? And then we have data engineer, you can have a product manager, um, and then you can add more to it, right? So you want to be a data analyst, let's say, so you can put that in here. You can see all the different roles I kind of put down here. Again, I'm just filling like putting stuff in here as like kind of an outline. You guys can kind of tweak this as you see fit. All right. So if you want to contribute, you have a particular topic, particular thing you want to cover, put your name in here into the contributors. And then we can just continue to iterate from there. So this is like this contributors file here. And you can see I'm kind of clicking on this to come back up to the top. And that was the README. I covered this. So this is like a rent roll requirement. Again, don't take what I just put in here as like what I actually want to do, but I'm just using this as an example. Okay. And so, rent roll is one of the standard type of reporting that you would do out of a real estate investment app. And so this executive summary, some objectives here, kind of the scoping of the work and the requirements, non-functional requirements. Hopefully this kind of explains a little bit. It's basically talking about, well, I have this report, what are some of the stuff that I need to get in terms of performance? Maybe I need the reports to come up pretty quickly. I want it to look a certain way, whatever. That's not actually business functionality. Um, but you can put that into here. Here's like your functional requirements, right? What you want to be able to do. Um, and then the different types of access or roles that need access. Okay. So again, it goes into like a couple of different things. And then here's like a sample rent roll. Okay. Um, but, you know, again, don't be constrained by what I put here. I kind of put it out here just as like an example of like how you might do some research and try to almost fit into like this template of different types of requirements and stuff like that. And then kind of have a mock-up of like what type of report you like to see. Okay. But for example, for this rent roll, I can look at it. Yeah, this is standard. I can probably put something out like this in case like I want to do some financing and the bank wants to know like how are my properties doing, um, or I want to use this to manage like upcoming tenants that are going to be potentially either renewing or ending their lease, right? So um, like you got this one here. This is an old one here, but this one here is 2025, August 31st. So kind of towards the end of the summer. So a little bit earlier on, I might want to talk to this tenant, get a feel for what's going on. Are you going to renew and whatnot? And then you can also take this a step further and you can say, hey, you know what? Based on this property's attributes, let's say this is an apartment, it's a two-bedroom apartment in so-and-so neighborhood. And then you can make a call into the API to, let's say, Zillow or something like that, and kind of say, for that neighborhood, what are the two-bedroom apartments going for, right? And kind of look at where your property is relative to the market. And that kind of helps to determine like how you might want to look at putting in like a lease proposal for this tenant. Let's say they want to renew. Okay, assuming they didn't put like something in the contract already. Um, so it's things like that that you can kind of think beyond what I just put on here. Um, for this rent roll report, for example. Okay. Uh, and let me see what else did I got here. Um, Here I just kind of put together a little bit of architecture, type of thing here. Again, this is more for the technically minded people who might want to kind of fit into that outline there or flesh things out more. I uploaded a little picture here. Again, it's just a sample picture. We don't necessarily need to go with this, but we would have different layers. We would have like a top level layer, which would be a high level architecture. Um, and then we can continually to drill down into each modules to figure out what the data requirements are. So what that data model would look like, and then ultimately what would be the technical implementation for that. Okay. So I think I've been talking very fast and covering this fairly quickly. But hopefully this gives you a feel for like the way I've kind of organized and structured things and kind of try to make it fairly open in terms of like whatever your background is and think about how you would like to contribute into this, right? So it's kind of open. You want to contribute as little as much as you want. Um, it's really up to you. Okay. So with that, let me get out of this. I'm going to stop the share. Cool. All right. So, and again, don't worry if you didn't get everything I just said, but hopefully I put it out there. And then if you want like more details and you can't find any documentation or you don't think my examples are giving you enough clarity, we can have like a separate meeting or a separate discussion to follow up on it in more detail. Okay. So based on everything I just covered, does this make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, no,
Yeah? Okay. So like
yes.
I said, I don't really want to go in there and say, hey, you're good at this, you're studying finance or you're studying real estate or whatever, or you're like the tech guy or whatever. Um, like I'm not looking at it that way. I just kind of almost lay out like all these options here, and then leave it up to you guys to come to me and tell me what you want to do. In terms of role, you can look at me as sort of like the product owner, right? So I kind of am pretty familiar with the real estate business. I actually have, experience using other systems, so I kind of have a pretty good feel for what these systems should be able to do. Um, and then I also have the technical background to know like, some of the potential options we might have if we want to go further than what a typical system might do. Okay, cool. Does anybody have any questions I can answer for you? Okay, so easy, right? Um,
Maybe just an idea of what your timeline looks like on this.
oh, it's very open-ended. Um, so like for me, this is I don't want to really call it an academic exercise, because like if we actually come up with something kind of viable that makes sense, I can actually really implement this. I obviously know developers and stuff like that. Um, and I have basically a setup with being able to roll out services, other types of business services. This would only be one of them. Um, so, given to answer your question about the timeline, like I'm not particularly in a rush to do anything. Like I actually have a system that does stuff already. So it does my business right. And not like I'm not dying here. So, I got stuff to do what I need to do right now. Uh, but this is more to give people here an opportunity to be able to uh, basically do whatever it is, right? Whether you're a technical person, like to do the architectural design, do the implementation there, or if you're more on the business side of things, to do like the business analysis, and like I said, just because you're doing business analysis doesn't really separate you from fully from the technical side of things, right? Ultimately, when you have to kind of do some sort of proof of concept to show that whatever your idea is can feasibly make sense from a business standpoint as well as from an implementation standpoint. Um, so you can have all kinds of freedom. You can really just say, okay, I want to look at the business analysis side of things, or you can take the full stack, like from the technical side as well as the business side. Okay. Um, I hope that answers your question there. It's open.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's open. Okay. So we'll just keep this running. In fact, I actually have like like a database implementation class that I'm going to be teaching in the fall, which part of their project work will probably one of the projects will probably be working around this also. Okay. Any other questions here?
Could you explain the roles more clearly, like what roles would have what jobs to do?
Okay, so okay, so there's different types of roles depending which one you're talking about. There's the roles that I mentioned in terms of like I'm like the business investor. I'm running a real estate investment company, right? So obviously I have a finance person, I have a person who's actually managing like when tenants call up, they have a problem, they have an issue or whatever. I have tenants, I mean, I have people that are managing like there's like all of the properties that I have that may or may not be vacant or whatever, that they have to go out and market the property, get the property like filled up with a tenant, stuff like that. Maybe I have to deal with like some other stuff in terms of like potentially evicting a tenant. I have to deal with that kind of stuff. Or I might have something where I'm actually renovating a property, right? So I have to manage that as a project. So I have to provision the materials. I have to get like that labor in there to do whatever it is, like put on a new roof or, lay out some plumbing, whatever it is I have to get done. So there's those type of roles, right? There's different people doing all that kind of stuff. And then there's the roles in terms of this particular project, right? So in this case, like I said, I would consider myself what you would call the product manager, because I know particularly what the business requirements are. So I can kind of give some direction on, where we can take things from a business functionality standpoint. Um, so that's another aspect of things. Obviously, from you guys, if you're on the business side, then I would say you're probably a business analyst role, right? And then obviously, we have people on the technical side that would be like an architect, it could be a developer. Um, yeah, so those are the two different types of roles. There's a role as a user on the user side of things, and then there's the role of the people that are actually working on this project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right. Any other questions here?
I got one question.
Sure.
So I see a lot of roles under the contributors on the page of
Yes.
contributors.
Right.
So I'm assuming like multiple students, I guess here would be having the same role.
Oh yeah, of course. So again, there's many different types of reporting or different types of dashboards you can work on. So you don't have to look at it saying, oh yes, there's someone doing XYZ report. I don't have any room to do anything. Like there's plenty of different types of reports to work on. And there's really nothing to prevent you to work on the same report as someone else, right? You can work together with them, or you can come up with your own version or own implementation of it. Um, it's fine, right? The project's very open in terms of like what you like to contribute. So just because you want to contribute on something and then you happen to look in the contributor list and see someone else is working on kind of the same thing, you don't have to say, "Oh, I can't work on it," right? You just kind of kind of create like your own version of it. Like, let's say we're talking about the rent roll report that I was just talking as an example before. You can do like rent roll report like ABC or whatever, right? And then just go ahead and come up with your own proposal on what you'd like to see for a rent roll report.
And what would you say like the different kinds of dashboards will connect with the reports? And so
So
the
yeah,
Mhm.
so you look at like the dashboards, it's almost like an operational type of thing. So it's almost like I come into the office every day and then I pull up a dashboard and say, okay, what's happening? What happened? Did something burn down last night? Did I gotta go follow up on this person I'm trying to evict or whatever? Like there's some action that I'm supposed to do, right? So that's kind of like a dashboard type of thing. So there'll be things that kind of pop up. It might have like a little red highlight on that line to kind of say, oh, you better do this today, otherwise we're in trouble. That type of thing. So that's almost like, your starting screen, your landing page. You come up you come into work every day, that's what you look at, your dashboards, any one of those dashboards, depending on what your role is. And then you look at reports as more like things that you provide to kind of say, oh, end of month reporting or end of quarter type of reporting, or I'm trying to provide some documentation to my bank, or I'm providing documentation to my insurance company, or I have to file my taxes. Like that's how like reporting would work, right? So does that distinguish like what a dashboard is versus a report?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
cool.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? All right, cool. And so, like I said, this is very free form. I've kind of put a lot of detail only to give people examples. Don't take what I just put out there as saying like that's exactly what I want. But it gives like a lot of like ideas, and it kind of provides almost like a framework or a structure that you can kind of work off of. But don't be constrained by that. Okay, go in there. If you have a fresh idea, you say, hey, you didn't think about this. Probably a real estate investor thinks about these type of stuff. I didn't flesh out some of the stuff that you do in terms of like, let's say I'm like a house flipper or something like that, or I'm doing major renovations on something. There is like a lot of stuff that goes into that type of stuff to optimize how you provision your materials, how you manage all of the different labor that is dealing with different parts of the house and all that kind of stuff. I didn't flesh out any of that kind of stuff. So you can look at that, or you can look at kind of examples, what I just put out there. And then, like I said, you can consider me to be a product owner. You can meet with me as much or as little as you want, right? You can just send me email, or you can say, hey, I'd like to talk to you. Um, and then bounce some ideas off of you. Like, here's like this report I'm thinking about we should do for this. What do you think? Right? Like that type of thing. Right. But I don't like to do something where I kind of just say, hey, we're going to meet every Monday. Right? And then we're going to go through it, right? This is meant to be self-paced. You put in as little as much time as you want. I'm a resource to you, right? So you can kind of go work on XYZ, and you can say, hey, here's like a document. Here's my business analysis or business requirements doc. I'm putting this out here. What do you think? Right? And we can kind of walk through that. I can say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Whatever. And we can keep on like fleshing it out. Okay, so the ultimate delivery would be like one of these documents that I gave an example of, right? Whatever report that I put out there, and really talk about it from the high level and drill all the way down to the implementation, like the details, like exactly how that would work, how it would get implemented, what the workflow might be like. Um, that's really like encompasses like a really 360 view of a particular function that you like to put into this type of system, let's say. Okay. So hopefully that gives you all good experience and to be able to like manage a project, to be able to do the business analysis, and even potentially translate that into a technical requirement, right? It's very 360, right? All around. And like I said, oftentimes with students, probably the limiting factor is the understanding of the business or the understanding of the requirements, because they don't really have someone who actually is doing that business to be able to come back and say, hey, yeah, that requirement or that analysis makes sense or not. So I'm here to provide you that business um, feedback or product ownership in this case. Okay. So again, I'm going to leave it to you. I'm not going to come chase anybody, right? So you come to me and you tell me, like, this is what I want to work on. You can update the contributor file. You can start to come up with some of your analysis, some of your ideas. You want to do some brainstorming with me. You want to send some proposals or drafts to me, whatever you want, just let me know. The next couple weeks, I'm actually going to be on the road, but of course, I'll check my emails. So you just send me the emails, tell me like what you need me to do, and I'll help you out however I can. Okay. All right. So any other questions before I wrap this up? Cool. Well, I look forward to working with you. Like I said, this is self-paced. You drive it as fast as you want, right? I'll be here as much as I can. to give you further explanation, whatever it is, whether it's like, how to work GitHub or how to like, do like requirements or like, the business on real estate side of things, whatever, you come to me and I'll make time for you. Okay? All right, awesome. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank
I'll
you.
talk to you. All right, bye.